Hey guys, staying here from Rocky Creek. It's a cold day, but we're gonna be out here and we got a little bit of snow a couple days ago. It's starting to melt off, but that prompted me to think about sharing with you all, what do we do to take care of our animals when it gets cold and when the snow starts hitting it? It's not as much of rocket science as you think. So let's get into that today, but let's get some stuff done too, some other chores. We'll talk about it along the way. So y'all, like I said, it's been pretty cold. It's been about 20s and 30s. We got a couple inches of snow, not too big of a snow, but a couple inches. And it was kind of a really wet snow, so everything's kind of getting real muddy and nasty now that everything's starting to melt off. But there are some few precautions we take anytime it gets really cold, and also for prepping in the future. But it's not as much as you think. And if you read a lot about it, you'll start to think that you need to do a lot of things. And some of you all may have a different opinion than me, and you may provide your animals a whole lot more than what I do. But this is what has worked for me, and this is what I think is best in the long run for my animals that I'm about to share with you. So if you got a difference of opinion, I value that, but I'll share with you what I do. First, let's get these guys some of these Grubterra snacks. They've been getting used to it. Look at them all come running. They know exactly what this bag is now. Y'all want that? Y'all know exactly what this is now, don't you? Huh? Everybody wants some. You want some? You want some? You want some? You want some? I feel like Ellen DeGeneres. Everybody gets a prize. Whoa, hey, back up. Back up. So we're several days into using this, and I can tell you, these chickens have absolutely loved these things. Now, in terms of benefit yet, we're still waiting to see. But as far as them just liking them, they absolutely love them, and they definitely know what this bag is now, because they see it, they all come running. And they don't do that for just every little thing I bring out here. I promise you that. So while we're here in the chicken pen, let's talk about what to think about when it comes to wintertime, cold temperatures, and what you need to do. Now understand, technically I'm considered the southeast part of the United States, but I'm right there on the line. But we do get usually about a handful of good snows each year, but they're not very often, and we'll just get some decent cold temperatures for a few months and then it'll pick back up. But with that being said, there are two main culprits that you need to watch out for with your livestock. So the number one culprit is obviously moisture, water. The rain, the snow, them getting wet. You got to be able to keep them dry. Just as with humans, if you get wet, you're likely to get more cold, more frostbitten, so you must keep them dry. Well, that one's pretty easy. You give them a good structure that will keep them dry. You make sure that they have dry bedding. Now you'll see theirs is pretty soiled right now, but that's because we're going to talk about how we try to produce them some heat naturally here in a minute. Normally it doesn't look like that. Q, you've been so quiet. What happened? You've been so quiet. Now you're yelling. Y'all hadn't seen Q-Tip much because Q-Tip's been behaving. Must got mad that I didn't give her more of the grub terror than I did. Oh, and now Lucky wants to get in on it. Oh well. So anyway, guys, provide your flock a good dry structure. And also the other main culprit is wind. So you got to keep them dry and you got to keep the wind off of them. But here's where you got to balance the wind factor, is you do need very good ventilation. If you do not properly ventilate your structures for especially your poultry, it will create a lot of condensation in cold temperatures. With condensation equals moisture, which goes against what we just talked about. So let me show you how we still have ventilation, even though I got a lot of this closed up really well. In the summertime, I want lots of ventilation because we have really hot, humid summer. So I have windows all the way around. Lucky. I got windows all the way around this coop, but I cover up all the windows but one. So as you can see, I just used some cardboard to cover up that one. But technically a little bit of airflow could get around this, but it keeps direct wind off of my flock. Same thing around here and right here. But if you noticed, if I close them up at night, this one is not covered. That is because most of my wind does not come towards the front of the structure. Most of my winds come from the side. So I will let regular airflow come in through that front window. When we come inside the coop here, there's a lot of dust. I need to clean it. But if you notice, I got a screen here on the top. Well, that's because there's airflow that is able to come in through here. Now, of course, like I said, we need to do a cleaning, so don't mind the dust. But there is still some air that gets to flow in through this coop from both the front window and from underneath the eaves of this structure. You may be able to see, but there's about a 2-inch gap at the top of where the wall does not meet the ceiling to allow some air ventilation to go up in there. So you want to have airflow, but you don't want the airflow to be going directly at the animal. So my airflow is running above the animal, which allows the moisture not to over collect, but still keeps direct wind off of them. So keep them dry and keep direct wind off of them when temperatures get cold. Now you may wonder, do we provide supplemental heat to our animals? The answer is no, not when they're full grown. The only time I provide supplemental heat is for babies. Full grown animals, I do not provide them supplemental heat. Now my chickens, I will help increase the heat inside of their coop during the winter months by what we call a deep litter method. So by deep litter method, all I mean is that typically we cover this floor in pine shavings. And then we rake it out each time it gets soiled to the point that we think it needs to be changed. So like right now, if this was summer, I'd be pulling all this out. But instead, what I will do in the winter is when it gets to this point, instead of pulling it all out, I will actually just keep adding pine shavings onto this. What this will begin to do is it will create almost like a composting within the coop. And any of you that know anything about compost is that the way it breaks down is that part of it is that it will generate heat as it's breaking down. Well, that bedding and manure will in turn generate heat as that under layer is breaking down, but that top layer keeps stuff from getting really funky and helps things maintain the way that they need to be. So what I'm getting ready to do right now, you saw me load pine shavings earlier. We're going to get a top layer spread in on there, and it'll make that coop a lot better. But then underneath, we'll provide warmth for those chickens once they're in there at nighttime. So there we go. We got the fresh pine shavings covered across the top, and this is much deeper than what I ever have it in here through the spring and summer months, but that's obviously why it's called deep litter method, and that the bottom will continue to break down and this will continue to go down and will produce heat here in the coop. Because be surprised when the chickens are in here too, huddled up side by side, they will produce a lot of heat themselves. Now I mentioned that they will produce quite a bit of heat themselves when they huddle up with one another. And I mentioned in previous videos, another way how I increase the amount of warmth that they have, especially at night when the temperatures are at their worst, is I give them some scratch grain or some kind of a longer digesting snack right before they go in at night, just because as their body digests, studies have shown that they actually produce more body heat while they're going through that digestive process. What's wrong, buddy? Now you want to go back with your friends? Oh, piggies. Oh, goodness. The pigs are no different than the chickens. You know, we get them a structure that blocks off direct wind. The roof keeps them dry. And then to also help with direct wind is I made sure I did that half wall on the front. So if somehow on a rare chance wind did come from this direction, which almost never happens in our area, they at least have some part of a barrier that they can get behind. And then the only other difference we do with them is that I make sure that when it gets really cold, I give them plenty of straw, because they will actually burrow themselves completely in the straw if need be. So as long as they got plenty of straw, they're good to go. No supplemental heat needed for them, other than if we had piglets in here. What's up, brother? What you doing, man? Oh, you studly man. So Mater's house is the only one. It's still enclosed on 3 sides and partially in the front, but his front opening is right in the middle. And he's so big that he really can't get to the far sides to get completely out of some wind if need be. So actually what I plan to do for him down the road is that I got the idea from a breeder of kune pigs, actually in New Zealand, that I've talked to on Instagram a few. And she actually runs those thick plastic strips like you see on freezers, commercial freezers, and that blocks enough wind but allows the pig in and out no problems. So I'm exploring some ideas on that and see if I can get some that are maybe scrap parts, since it's such a small area and so short, that'll be inexpensive, and try to add those here in the near future. But otherwise, Mater doesn't seem to be bothered. I also have him facing this direction because, like I said, we rarely get wind from this area, and we just add additional bedding for him also as needed. Huh? You studly, man. You so studly. You so studly. So you may be wondering to yourself, why aren't we providing them supplemental heat if it makes them more comfortable? Well, the reasoning for that is because I think it's what's best for the animal. These animals were created and made in a certain way to be able to withstand certain climates. Now, I do make sure that when I research certain breeds, I do get breeds that based on our climate will be okay. I would not want to get a breed that is predominantly a cold weather animal and put them down in, say, Florida. So I do make sure I do my breed research, and the breeds that we have can very well acclimate and survive our climates without any issues. But my other reason is that I have to plan for what may happen. And I have to plan for power outages and various things like that. And if I don't allow this animal to naturally acclimate to the temperatures, adjust to what's going on, because they have a heat source that's providing them a constant 80-degree weather even into January, and we have a power outage, and now that animal has gone from a constant 80, hasn't acclimated, and is now at 20 degrees for an extended period of time. That's very dangerous, and I could lose my animal. Now, like I said, we do take some precautions to make sure that they're safe. You can't just throw the animal out there and expect them to be fine. But I can clearly tell as the temperatures are changing, the pigs in particular, their fur comes in way thicker than what it is in the spring and summer months. You'll also see them in the opposite. Spring and summer, they'll kind of do what I believe they call bolting, where, I mean, it's like huge amounts of their fur is just gone. And that's because they're adjusting to the warmer climates. My chickens are molting hard right now. Well, they're molting hard for a reason, and that's because we've had an abnormally cold winter, and they're shedding those feathers to get a thicker set of down on their bodies to be better prepared for this winter. So these animals have been designed and created to be able to adjust and adapt and overcome the climates. And I feel like if I'm constantly supplementing them like you would a house pet, I'm actually setting these animals up for failure. They're not going to be as hardy, and they're going to struggle to survive if we were to get something out of the ordinary, such as a long-term power outage. So those are my reasons why we don't provide supplemental heat. I hope this would maybe eliminate some stress for some of you all as we're in these colder months, wondering how are you going to protect your animals. Like I said, this is specific to the breeds that I raise and to the climate that I'm in, to what levels I need to take. If you're in a subarctic climate or somewhere that's extreme cold, you may have to adjust accordingly, and you may have to provide some form of heat. But for me, in what I consider a true 4-season climate area, this works out just fine for me. So I wanted to share with you all that you don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to spend crazy amounts of money. Use common sense. Keep them dry, keep direct wind off of them, give them proper bedding. They should be fine. So guys, I hope this helped you out. As always, we appreciate you coming along. We hope everybody's doing well. And until then, guys, we'll see you here real soon on the next video. Y'all be good.